Kayla here from Journey Dog Training. It is Training Tuesday, and today Barley and I are going to be demonstrating a game called Can You Listen When?, which is designed to help you guys teach your dogs to listen in more and more distracting scenarios. Just so you guys know, today, as always, Training Tuesday is brought to you guys on behalf of Journey Dog Training. That is my blog and training business that is completely remote. So I work with people over email, phone, Skype, through ebooks or through group classes, all completely online. So if you guys are interested in getting any help with your pets, be sure to check out journeydogtraining.com, and you'll be able to find something that works with your learning style and your budget and your schedule through one of our many options. Okay? So as I said, today we are working on the Can You Listen When game. And as you guys can see, right now I am on a beach in Costa Rica. It's gorgeous. And this is already one of the aspects of the Can You Listen When game. One of the things that we often do wrong with our dogs is we practice in the kitchen or we practice at training class and that's it. And we forget to take our training on the road and teach our dogs that cues mean what they mean, regardless of where you are. So our dogs are not as verbal as we are. We are humans. We are super duper verbal. For us, it's easy to learn that a word equals an object. For our dogs, it can be hard to tell whether the sound that we're making is what predicts what they're supposed to do or whether it's one of the other things that's happening in the environment. So many of our dogs don't necessarily learn that focusing on what's coming out of our mouth or the hand signal that we're giving is the most important thing. They think that it's the fact that it is 6 p.m. on a Tuesday and we are in the kitchen and mom has her treat pouch on, and that means it is time to sit. Versus it should be because we say sit, right? So that's one of the aspects here of the Can You Listen When game. And I've kind of broken it down into a couple different distraction categories. So those distraction categories are: number 1, location; number 2, things that your dog could eat or play with; number 3, people and dogs that are nearby; number 4, what you, the handler, are doing as far as movement or how far you are from the dog; number 5, the surface that your dog is on; and then number 6, any distracting noises that are around you. Okay, so Barley and I are going to demonstrate some of those here. And if you guys go to journeydogtraining.com/CanYouListenWhen with a dash in between each of those words, you'll see a bunch more ideas. And the thing with this game, guys, is I want it to be fun and I want you to get creative with it. There is no hard and fast way to play this game correctly, because different things that my dog thinks are distracting might not be as distracting for your dogs, and vice versa. So for Barley, my dog here, someone throwing a frisbee out there behind me would be probably the most distracting thing possible for him, other than maybe a flock of sheep. A lot of dogs don't really care that much about frisbees. That wouldn't be a big deal. But for a lot of dogs, another dog walking by would be a really big deal. Barley's pretty so-so about other dogs, so keep that in mind. One of the other rules here, you guys, is I want this to be a fun game. There is no or else in this game, okay? So try not to test your dog. You're not trying to make this so hard that your dog fails. And if your dog does fail, take that as information that your dog wasn't quite ready and you need to do some more practice with that particular aspect. So if I ask Barley to sit while I'm lying on my back staring at the ceiling and he doesn't sit, that doesn't mean I need to correct him. That means that we need to practice a little bit more so that he learns that my body position doesn't matter, the word matters, okay? So just keep that in mind, try to be patient, make it easy enough for your dog that you're generally succeeding, but make sure you're making it hard enough that you're actually learning something new, okay? So Barley and I have already done one of the distractors. We are in a new location that is really hard for him. As I said, the ocean is just, he loves the ocean. Right now he's playing a fantastic digging game right underneath the tripod right now. I'm actually astonished he's not trying to get into the ocean. Maybe last week's training actually has really paid off. Be sure to check out what we did last week about the ocean to help deal with his ocean obsession. And maybe he's just all swimmed out because we already went swimming today. So that's number 1. Now I'm going to start demonstrating some of the other things. And the first thing I'm going to start working with is my movement and where I am in relation to him and whether or not he's able to listen to me with that. So you are going to see Barley and I practicing with a couple different cues so that you can see his different levels of things. For you guys, just make sure that it's already a cue that your dog knows pretty well. You're not going to see me practicing this with a cue such as bow. Right now, Barley is learning to, get into a play bow. He's really not ready for this proofing game yet with that behavior. So the behaviors that you're practicing with this, you already need to be decent at them, okay? So here we go. All right, Barley, come on. Drop it. Drop it. Come on. Boop. Good. Leave it. Good boy. So the first, I'm gonna just march in place and I'm going to start asking him to do some different things, okay? Down. Good. Stand. Good. High five. Good. And you guys can see me moving isn't distracting him, but I don't know if you're noticing this, but he is glancing out back at that stick right now. So me marching is actually starting to dig a hole in the sand here. That's not very fun for me, so I'm gonna stop doing that. Now I'm going to turn and face you guys, and facing away from your dog often makes things really hard for them, okay? So now I'm going to try again and see how he does with that. Barley, down. Not quite ready for that. We'll try again just because he wasn't quite paying attention. Barley, down. There you go, good boy. So I don't want you guys to repeat cues over and over if your dog isn't getting it right, but I could see in the lens there that Barley wasn't really looking at me when I first asked him to lie down. So we'll see. So Barley has moved over and laid down in the shade here. That is my cue that we are actually going to rotate the camera around and we're going to do our training in the shade. I don't want my dog to be really uncomfortable. So I'm going to pause this recording and come back to you in a second. Alrighty, so sorry, it looks like I'm going to be a little bit dark here, but at least my dog is comfortable. So let's go back to it. And so we're already doing a little bit with location. I want you guys to make sure that you're training your dogs in a bunch of different locations. Take them to mall parking lots, Walmart parking lots, take them to the vet clinic, take them to a school playground. Don't break any laws, keep your dogs on leash, but I do want you guys to try to practice with your dogs in different locations. And then get a little bit creative with what you guys are doing as far as your bodies. I think we often get in the habit of being square to our dogs, face to face. We have our hands on our hips, we fold our hands, we have our hands in our pockets, we have our hands with our treats, and we're not varying what we're doing with our bodies very much, and then all of a sudden you're sitting down at a coffee shop and you ask your dog to do something and your dog doesn't listen. Part of that could be the coffee shop. Also, a big part of it is probably the fact that you have never asked your dog to lie down before while you are sitting and not facing your dog. So make sure that you're keeping those things in mind as well. Barley and I are going to demonstrate a couple more of those things, and then we're going to start showing some of the other things that we can do as well, all right? Barley, come on. Come join me. All the way. Gotta get the dog in frame. There he is. Leave it. So now I'm going to sit with Barley, and I'm going to sit kind of facing you guys and give him a couple cues and see how he does when I'm sitting as well. High five. High five. Good. Flinging sand in my face. Down. Good. Stand. Good boy. Okay, so he's doing pretty well there. Now I'm going to try waving my arms around while I'm sitting. Waving your arms is something that's often really, really distracting and confusing for our dogs, okay? So, down. Good boy. All the way. We're on a little bit of a hill, so I think I praised him when he wasn't quite all the way down, but it's hard to tell because we're on the sand and it's hilly and who knows. Stand. Good boy. All right, so one of the other things that's really hard for our dogs often is us being at a distance. So I'm gonna show you guys with one that Barley and I, I'm gonna show you guys some stuff that Barley and I have been working on with distance, okay? So I'm gonna move as far over to that end of the screen as I can get. Barley's gonna stay here, and we're gonna show you guys a little bit of that. Because again, we often practice face-to-face with our dogs within 2 feet of our dogs, and then all of a sudden we want our dog to sit and stay when they're at the end of the flexi lead. And lo and behold, they don't listen to us, okay? So make sure that you're practicing at different distances If your dog doesn't have great off-leash obedience, you can actually just tie your dog to a tree, tie your dog to a door, and then practice there. But you might want to start at first just taking like little tiny half steps back, okay? Don't try to move across the room yet if your dog hasn't practiced this. Just really, when Barley and I start working on this, I take like half a step backwards, and if he's really struggling, I'll literally just shift my weight backwards first to start practicing, okay? There we go. Stand. Good. So Barley and I are still struggling with the fact that when I ask him to stand from a down at a distance, he will move towards me. And that's okay. We're not working on formal obedience or anything right now. But if you guys are looking at competition obedience or anything like that, that is a problem. Stand. Back up. Good boy. Down. Drop that in the sand, that's gross. Stand. Good. Okay, so try practicing moving your torso around, moving backwards away from your dog, waving your arms around, marching in place, standing on one leg, sitting down, lying down. Get creative with what you're doing with your body as far as how you're moving and how close you actually are to your dog, okay? So that's location, movement. One of the other big things that we can do is we can start introducing other distractors. So this is a lime, it looks like a ball. That's really hard for Barley. So I'm going to put this lime down over here, and then we're going to work on some obedience with Barley with this around. I also have a hot dog to start practicing some other stuff, teaching him to ignore really tasty treats. So treats and toys, try to have those around sometimes when you're practicing so that your dog learns to focus on you in the presence of exciting stuff. You blew over, I'm sorry. Sorry about that, you guys blew over a little bit there. Again, so practice in the presence of toys and treats. Start with things that are less exciting for your dogs, you know, like a head of broccoli, a piece of banana, his least favorite toy, and build up. And as you're working with more and more exciting things, keep them further away at first. So there's some horses behind us, that's exciting. Barley, high five. Good job. So you can also just use stuff that happens in the environment, right? Yeah, high five. Good boy. I could not have summoned horses for a training scenario, but I can practice when they walk by. Again, so back to what we were saying. If you've got a hot dog and you're going to use that as your distraction, make sure that your dog is ready for that, because if your dog breaks and eats the hot dog, then your dog just got a whole freaking hot dog, and that is a pretty good lesson for him that it's worth it to not listen to you. So try not to let that happen. And two, it's going to be easier for your dog if the hot dog is further from him at first. So if I took a hot dog and I put it where you guys, the camera is, that would be much easier for him versus if I put a hot dog right in between us right now, okay? So keep all that in mind. Set your dog up for success. We're challenging them, but we're not trying to trip them up, okay? So here's our lime. Down. Good. Boop. Good. High five. Good. Stand. Stand. Oh no. That is very nice though. Stand. Good boy. No smell? Leave it. Alright, so I can tell Barley's actually struggling a little bit with focus right now, so I'm not going to test him with a hot dog, and that's something else to keep in mind. Just like us, our dogs can start getting overwhelmed, they can start having a hard time. So if your dog is having a bit of an off day, maybe it's not the day to practice training around a T-bone steak. Alright? So Barley and I have also already been practicing a little bit of one of the other aspects of the Can You Listen When game, which is people, dogs, horses, cats, all that stuff going by, okay? If you can, set up a controlled environment where you can practice around other dogs or people or whatever, that's great. If you can't, take advantage of it when you can, or hit the middle ground. This is what I generally did with my in-person clients when I used to work with people in person in Denver. We had some really great parks, and we knew 90% of the people are going to be on the running path, right? or the walking path or whatever. So we could situate ourselves away from that running path in a way that we knew the dog could be successful at that distance, and then we could move closer and closer to that running path as the dog was succeeding, okay? So you guys can also think of ways to do that. I was just talking to a client who's got an aggressive dog last night. They're going to be practicing at the far end of the local Walmart parking lot because they know that the chances of someone approaching them when they're at the very far end of that Walmart parking lot is really, really low. So you guys can also set up practice scenarios with other people, dogs, horses, cats, all that good stuff. Just be smart about how you're gonna do it so that you don't get surprised with a cat running in between you and your dog in the middle of the training session when your dog is not ready for that, okay? Use leashes. For that aggressive client that I was just talking to, they're using muzzles and a couple other safety tools as well. Be smart about it, but do go ahead and start practicing that, because if you don't practice it and then something happens where you're on the beach and some horses walk by and you haven't practiced for similar scenarios, there's a good chance your dog is not going to listen very well, right? So the last two are noises and surfaces. So for a lot of our dogs, if we ask them to lie down when they're standing in tall grass, that's really confusing and they need to practice that. Same goes for sand or water. So if you guys can set up some practice scenarios where you're training your dog on different surfaces, even slightly wobbly surfaces, that's really, really great. Try with your dog elevated. Try having your dog stand on the sofa or the bed or something and do some training with them higher up. Is it weird for them if you are below them when you're actually training them? Experiment with that a little bit. Barley and I are already doing a little bit of that right now, and it is hard for him on this hill and on this sand. Not only is that physically challenging, whoops, he almost fell over again. Not only is that physically challenging for him because it takes a lot more core muscles to lie down and stand up on shifting sand on a hill, but it also is cognitively difficult for him because he needs to learn how to do that, right? And then the other is noises. So if you guys can try playing music sometimes while you're training, have the sound of people going by, do some training while someone else in your house is cooking. Practice with different noises going on around as well, and that's going to really help your dog learn to listen. So I've got another dog coming up who's going to come say hi to Barley right now, I think. And I'm just going to let that happen because he's not currently training. And he's met this dog before. He's actually our neighbor's dog. So yeah, that's pretty much the Can You Listen When game. And again, I want you guys to get creative with it. Again, there's no or else with this game. Just feel free to get out there, get creative, take your dog to new places. Be sure to use safety precautions when you need. Use leashes, use muzzles. Make sure that you're not breaking any laws with what you're doing, and get creative with what you're doing with your body, what is in the environment, who's walking by, where your dog is in relation to you, and just be sure to practice that and to make it fun, guys, because I know I personally find it much more fun to teach my dog to do a new trick. I find it a lot more fun to start teaching him how to do that bow than I find it fun to actually start getting him to a place where he can listen to that bow when I'm 20 feet across the training field from him and my back is to him. But ultimately, that's going to be a lot more useful for me. I guess bow is a bad example because it's not necessarily a super useful behavior. But if your dog can only sit when you are in your kitchen or in training class with your treat pouch on and it's Tuesday at 6 p.m. and there's no one else around, it's not super useful. So this is really, really important, you guys. It's also super fun. So let me know what you think. Let me know what problems you're running into. If you've come up with any fun distractions, please let me know. I'd love to hear more. And again, you guys can find me and find my training options at JourneyDogTraining.com. And if you want to read more about the Can You Listen When game, it's JourneyDogTraining.com/CanYouListenWhen with a little dash, you know, in between every one of those words. All right, we'll see you next week for Training Tuesday.